Hello, greetings from Hyderabad. Today's event focuses on Sitecore Search configuration to go live, presented by Ritesh and Suneel and hosted by Vishal and Yamin. Over to you, Ritesh and Suneel.
Thank you, Yamini. I hope everybody can hear me. Let me share my
Yes.
screen. Okay. You can all see the slides, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Cool. To my start. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining today's session. And thanks Yamini and Vishal for giving the platform for this session. The goal here is to talk through around Sitecore Search. The major focus is on the search when we start configuring from scratch and how you take it to the production, right? So good morning, good afternoon, all the people who joined across the country and outside country. I'll quickly introduce myself. Let me see if slideshow is going. So I'm Ritesh. I work as a VP engineering at Icreon, almost 18 year of industry experience. I lead the DXP practice at Icreon and been associated with Sitecore community almost 10 years now. Worked on various product certification and at the below you will see my LinkedIn. Feel free to connect for more engaging and knowledge sharing across this platform. With me, I have Suneel. Over to you.
Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Good morning, good evening. So my name is Suneel Joshi and I'm an Sitecore architect. I've been with ICREON like for 5 years, 8+ years of industry experience. Along with Sitecore, I have done various projects in Sitecore from Sitecore 8 to Sitecore AI now and have multiple certification, Sitecore, XP, XM Cloud, CDP, and I've been part of critical product development, project development cycles. And below is my LinkedIn and Gmail where you can reach out to me with any questions or any suggestion that you might have for the session.
Thanks, Suneel. So how we Sitecore search itself is a vast topic, right? So what we have thought of doing a full Sitecore search configuration implementation, how you migrate it, and then also looking into the advanced feature of Sitecore. So one is like configuring a basic from the scratch. What is the search? Most of you, I'm sure you already know. Uh, so we propose to have a two session considering the time needed to overall run through the search. Session one is more around, which is a today's session where we're going to talk around Sitecore search and the core concepts of the search. Then in understanding the different types of crawler options available, how we use different extractor to pull the content dynamically for indexing purpose, how to configure attributes, filters, facets, creating, deploying search widgets, using API for doing any kind of validation, and at the end, troubleshoot any particular error message or any issue you get post configuration. So that's a session one, which will be today's agenda, right? And the second one is second part of the session is more around more AI native features like relevance, how to do personalizations, advanced crawling options, then dynamic content and real-time indexing, multi-language search, localization, search optimization, and the other best practices. So we'll focus today on the session one. I'll be talking more around solution architecture, and then at the end we're gonna do a demo, right? So in today's session, if you see what you expect at the end of today's session is you will understand Sitecore Search as a platform where it fits in the overall DXP ecosystem. You will know how to analyze and choose the right crawler type and configure a sitemap crawler from the scratch. You will also be able to write and integrate JavaScript extractor code, which is critical when your content is dynamically rendered and regular crawler just won't cut it. You'll also understand how to map attributes for filtering and faceting, which is what makes search truly useful for end user. Also, we're gonna talk through like how to deploy different widgets, uh, and at the same time, a fantastic tool for validating the search queries before going into the production, right? And at the end of this session, we'll talk about more around how to review the analytics dashboard, various types of analytics which comes out of the box from the search perspective. So these are the some of the key pointers which you expect at the end of this session as a learning, right? So I'll quickly jump. It's a very basic definition just to set the level ground. Uh, a Sitecore Search is an AI-driven headless content and product discovery platform. It is, I would say, it is not just a keyword search box. It's designed to deliver fast, relevant, and personalized search result across content, product, and recommendation. And you will see, like so far, uh, searches are more around site search and content search, but now it's going to the next level where we have searches is more around also having the product search or the recommendation. The there are certain keywords in this definition. Headless is very common term in the DXP world, right? The best part is it is completely decoupled from the presentation layer. It doesn't care whether you are using a Next.js or React or any other front-end component. What it does, it exposes an API or an SDK, which you can plug in wherever you need search, right? So conceptually, as a search, as a functionality, where it's a way we're gonna find the content, we're gonna personalize the content, we're gonna put the recommendation, and same time from an integration perspective, it is easy to integrate either with the Sitecore ecosystem, or you can also integrate Sitecore Search with the other DXP platform. That's the composability uh, requirement. Like that is the real benefit of composable service, right? Headless service. Some of the key terms you might be already familiar with before we get into the actual hands-on demo. Understanding these keywords is important. Starting with crawling and indexing. What it means is this is how Sitecore Search discovers the content and it crawls the website or API and convert that content into a searchable entities, right? So that's what is the meaning of the crawling and indexing. What at entity and attributes, I'm sure you all know entity as a structured document type, like an article or a product or a blog post, and attributes are the metadata field attached to it. So you have entities, which is the content type, and the attributes are more around the metadata. Like for article, there may be a title, might be an author, right? Date, category. Those can be considered an entity, and the attributes. That's the definition of the entity and attributes. Once you have a document, you know your entity, then next level is more into relevancy and ranking. This is important piece in the search world, the algorithm that decides what show up first. And this is where Sitecore Search differentiate itself with the ML driven ranking, right? So how you want to render a sequencing of the search outcome and a user search is, that's more around uh, relevance and ranking piece of it. Once you have the search result, then you comes in like facets and filters. Like when you go on Amazon, you see different kind of filters running. For example, on the left hand side, you can play around to narrow down the search, right? So the it's a UI level tool that let users narrow down results. Think of the filter panel of any, for example, an Amazon site. The search widget is something out of the box from Sitecore itself, which just means it's a pre-built configurable UI component that we deploy at the front end side. And it is like a component. It could be a site, it is a box, it could be a search box, it could be a result page, it could be a recommendation widget, right? So that goes under the Sitecore widgets. Personalization, we all know by definition itself, Sitecore Search tracks a visitor ID and uses behavioral signal to personalize result per user. So user is coming in, if user is, every user gets assigned to a visitor ID, and that visitor ID helps to track down the behavior of the user, right? Index synchronization, making sure that if there is an if there is a content on the site which is indexed into the search, and if there is any changes happens onto that content, again something gets added, deleted, making sure that the latest and greatest content is available for search. And the last one is most important from the uh, search technicality perspective, which is synonyms, stemming, and tokenization. These are like query intelligence features that helps the search engine to understand what user is looking for, even when they are type it imperfectly. So when you type something, you get a suggestions, you get a related word, you get a partial search, those kind of things gets appended as part of the these features, which is called synonyms, stemming, and tokenization. These are some key search topics which really helps. I'm sure most of you already know this, but in terms of when we talk about Scratch and when we go into the demo, these concepts will help you to correlate what it means in terms of real world search implementation. If you see from architecture perspective, uh, there are few things. One is like at the left hand side, you see all the sources, right? There's a bigger box in the center which talks about Sitecore Search user interface, and at the end you have the end user and the action taken by the end user, these two arrows. So if I start explaining this in terms of this, for example, this is the front end. Anyone who looks for any information on the site, it enters a search keyword. That search keywords invokes an endpoint API, right? So search and recommendation API, it hits to the Sitecore search engine, right? And what it happens where all the indexes gets managed. So what happens is anything and everything which we want to make available on the site to search, those gets indexed as a document within the Sitecore search. So there are, which is called as a content collection. Under that you have a different indexes, for example, articles, blogs, any kind of other product information that gets indexed. These are the UI components. You remember in the last slide I mentioned there are out of the box components are available, which helps building the UI experience easily, right? So when a user search ins, it searches the information into the uh, index document, right? And once they find the documents accordingly, the API returns that information at the front end. This indexing process, there is an ingestion APIs. There are different mechanisms to push these content into Sitecore index. For example, there are crawler based, there are API based, and we'll see in a real demo right? How this indexing you can configure per site, what are the different options available. So any source system which creates the content gets pushed into the Sitecore search index. And from a front end perspective, anybody looks for the information, it goes into through API to that index, search the data, and return the result on the front end. That at very high level, you will have an opportunity to talk more into detail when we get into the demo. Right. This is the next, it is the logical flow, right? So what happens is there are a content search, right? And in the content search, when we look for a different type of, for example, if you say source like web API, fit CMS, provide data, these are the different options, right, which is available. These sources document gets indexed into the search, right? There are two options of doing it. Either we do a crawler extract, or we can also call the APIs to do that, right? And based on that index, that entity and attributes gets identified. Once the entity and attributes get identified, that particular document becomes structured with the metadata. And then on that, we decide like the relevancy and the ranking of that search content. So for example, if we look for a, if we search for a site, right, then that could be a site or site core both. So it's a like a full text search or partial search, and based on the, if it matches the full string, that particular content will go up in the search result, and if it is matches partial, then it will come down into the search result. So that is how the relevancy gets decided, and there is Sitecore has its own algorithm, but we have an ability to boost that uh, score at the search label, right? And we'll see in the demo. And at the end, all these UI widgets which we talked about, those widgets gets used to build those UI component, right? And any visitor who comes on the site gets assigned to a personalized UUID. Sitecore called as UUID, which is the user identification, right? And search user, uh, this UID gets used to personalize any kind of search response, like when you go on a travel site or any other e-commerce site, based on your search behavior pattern, it starts showing you more related search result. And any action we take, any click, any search we do, everything gets captured within the analytics piece of uh, search, and we'll see the analytics dashboard. So this is a logical flow how search works. When we set up this as part of the demo, then you will able to correlate this. So I'll just take a pause here. I'll try to jump into the demo. So I think Sunil, you can quickly share your screen and talk through from this point, really starting from the scratch, configuring the search into the Sitecore search. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Let me know you guys can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Whenever you start integrating, right, we have four different options when you are trying to integrate Sitecore search into any particular piece of tech website, right? So first one is the SDK for React. If your app is using React, Next.js, you can utilize this particular SDK. Second is Cloud SDK, which is now a default with Content SDK, but it does not work out of the box, right? You have to still link your context ID with your Sitecore search, right? You have to request a support ticket in order to use Cloud SDK for your context IDs to be mapped with your search environment. Next is JavaScript data package, which is if your site is now either using React or um, Next.js is just a plain website, right, where you want to integrate it. The Sitecore provides the JavaScript data package as well, where you can natively use vanilla JavaScript or jQuery, other things. Last one is REST API, which is basically an API endpoints where you can particularly call or pass your filters, attributes, data, and it will return a response. It's basic HTTPS requests, how they goes with the right parameters, and you have more flexibility, empowerment, but you have to do right integrations, writing JavaScripts, all those things, right? So on this particular demo, we will be using the JavaScript SDK for React because we are trying to show the composable part of the Sitecore Search as well, where we are going to integrate with one of the non-Sitecore part websites, which is we have created for the demo, right? And going to the next slide. So the prerequisites for this particular Sitecore Search is you have to have a valid Sitecore license. Um, you should have at least an integration strategy that we are, either you are going to use Cloud SDK, JavaScript SDK. Again, basic differences whenever you are using XM Cloud or Content SDK, right? You should go with the Cloud SDK because it gives you a lot of more options. And the indexing strategy, which I will show you in a bit, which is can be web crawler, API crawler, or feed crawler. There are multiple things where you need to define or understand what these are, and you need to start from the base, right? Which kind of crawler fits your business needs, what particular search attributes you want to map and make facets out of it or market searchable, right? In general, like title or description can be searchable attributes, or your industries of particular, which is mapped via tags, can be your filters. Your publishing date can be your sorting counterpart, right? So these things you need to figure out before starting anything in Sitecore Search, right? So these are the prerequisites. Now let's move ahead to the demo, right? So to mark a demo, I have created a basic website. It's in purely on the Next.js plus React it's using, right? These are basic some pages I have created, nothing complicated, right? And I'm trying to integrate this particular website with Sitecore Search, which is not connected to Sitecore Search in any way, or there is no particular integration with XML, right? So we are going to use JavaScript SDK package, right? And we are going to integrate it. So whenever you start integrating, right, you first you will come to this portal, right? I'm just going to open. You will see search this search portion. When you open, you will have a dashboard where you will land, right? And now, right, you this is the basic dashboard where you can see all the um, analytics and part, but our main focus starts on the sources, right? Sources is similar to what we use to create um, indexes in Solar Search, right? If we have worked in XP, right, we used to create a lot of indexes, and for each indexes, right, we used to query against them for their own purposes, right? So this is where you mostly start, right? And when you start creating the index, right, you would already have some fields on your mind, right? But which fields you want to integrate and how you want to utilize them. So show you quickly, right? When you click on add source, right, you can have an index name or source name, right? So I'm just going to add it demo one, right? And description. And when you go and select the connect, choose the connectors, right, you will see multiple type of connectors. API crawlers is basically when you have a data which is not particularly for from your website, right? It can be your Brightcore videos, your YouTube integrations, anything that is besides outside of your Sitecore thing, right? You can crawl that data using API crawlers. API push is whenever you want to push the documents on the runtime, feed crawlers, sales feed, web crawler, right? These the things that Sitecore Search provides out of the box, right? I'm going to utilize this web crawler advanced, right, due to its extraction attributes and more capabilities around it, right? And let me just create it for you, right? So when we create this index or sources, right, we have few options that you would see, right, in this particular page, right? Whatever the source ID was, what's the status of it, right? So when we start defining these things, right? So first thing is we need to define the crawler source, right? So this is where the trigger comes into the picture, right? When you click on this add trigger, right, you would see that there are multiple type of triggers that you want to index, right? For example, you can write your own custom code. If there is an RSS, you can have an HTTP call for particular this piece. I'm going to use this sitemap. So how this is going to work is, so whenever my website is going to index is, right, most of the website have this sitemap XML, and where you have defined all the pages or for your crawlers, web crawlers, right? So this is what we are going to utilize and just set up the crawlers, right? So when you say like add items, and this will be the source of truth for the Sitecore search, right? Sitecore search will crawl each of them these pages and start creating your documents within Sitecore search. So this is the base point, giving it the source of truth. Now coming to the next portion, which is how do you extract the data from the documents that you have, right? Now this is an decomposable thing, right? So I just want to show you few things before we start. So what I have done is you can do a lot of things, right? You can loop through all the HTML within this particular piece and have the data extracted. But what I have done is that I have put a hidden attributes in one of the HTML tags, right, where I have set up a base template data for what is, for example, what is the template type, what is the name, what was the published date, and the author information, right? So I'm going to extract this particular piece from Sitecore within Sitecore search from this website. So how it will work is it will go trigger your sitemap, loop through each and page by page, and then it will start working on your documents, etc. So when you create a documents, etc., you can have this XPath, right? Or you can have the selectors where you can define the attributes. I'm just going to utilize the JS one because it looks simpler. You can write a lot of custom code. You can have uh, complex logics, right, within them. So when you click on this, this is a basic extractor the Sitecore provides you, that this is how it should be. The syntax is Cheerio syntax. If you are going to work on a little more complex task, right? So let me just show you a few things, right? What it is doing currently is that it is mapping a response body, which is again you the particular HTML which will come out from the site, and it was just looping through all the attributes that it has. For example, data description, content, website, their title, and what is the type, what is the URL, right? These are the basic things that it is talking through, but we will have much more, right? When we start doing it. Also, one thing that you can do is whenever you are changing anything, any particular code or any particular thing, you can always validate this thing. I'm just going to try to validate this, right? And okay, this looks good, right? Each and these fields, right, which you have defined, right, will be part of this particular validation. You can see the results dynamically, that what was the value, and you can always debug, right? Coming here, that if the data does not seem right, or if your page looks data looks different than what you expected, right? So this is how you define the basic document extractor. Now, one thing that is to be understand is, right, how do you update these indexes, right? You have to define that strategy as well. I showed you that there is an API push crawler as well, where you can directly push it, but you can always have a scheduler which runs on the background and updates the document every 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever the business case may be, right? So you can define those crawler, and what it will do is, again, the same process. It will go to the website, crawl the items, and loop through your crawler and put all this data, right, into your index. So it's just simple as that. You define that if you want to do it on the 2 days, or if you want to do it on a 1 day, and whatever the expiry date may be, right? For this may be specifically useful for a particular page which you have for any campaign, and you want to have a specific date, right? After this will end, so there's no need for updating the index, right? So you can define all those crawler settings within this, right? So this is how you basically define. There are few things that I want to talk, is that this authentication, right? There are some type. So what happens is, there are some pages, certain pages which is behind some kind of authentication, but you still want to index them, but so user can find them, but whenever they are landing to the page, right, they still go to the authentication process, but they want to have that you want to have that searching capability. So you can define the authentication type, right? So the crawler does not know that your page is authenticated, right? So you can always define those authentications here. Either it's a basic type, or if you have some particular browser authentication, right? We sometimes just put, right, some gated logic around it, right? So you can also define those things. I have created a source already for this particular website, right? I'll just show you quickly, right? This is my document source, right, where I have mapped few fields out of the box: the name, search type, URL, right? So this is how a basic standpoint or index starting looks like. But when you run this index, right, this particularly piece would not index. And the reason being, right, you have defined all the fields within your extractor or your index, but Sitecore Search yet does not know what to do about those fields, right? So you have to define all those fields within Sitecore Discover, right? So where you would come is, you would come to the administration, domain settings, and attributes. So when you come here, right, you would see that all the attributes that you are supposed to index, what is the type of it. It's similar to what we used to do in Solar, and we used to define the particular type of field, what is their output type, right? Is it localized, and is it faceted, right? These things you can define in this particular attributes, and each attribute you will have your own different attributes within themselves. So I'm just going to add one more one attribute which I have added here, but not a part of it, right? So this is an author which I have added in websites every page metadata, and I'm just going to add it, right? So just selecting the entity. Entity is the base where you start, the display name, author, what is the data type that you want to be. I want it to be a string. You have multiple data types where you can utilize string, JSON, array. So I'm just going to utilize the string. If you want to have a default value, if there is no value out of it, any description, I'm just going to put author for the page. So these are the metadata that you should put, right? Because in the 6 months or a year later, right, you will forget, right, which field or for which purpose these fields will be was there, right? So you just define all those things, that if you want any aliases that you want, this is a new thing, right? If you want to assign the icon, you can particularly assign the icon into it. Now this is an important thing, right? Whenever you define, you're starting define attribute, is this field required or not, right? Requiring is one of the things which marks this field to be part of the sources as well, right? So you would not mark it require, right? For if you have multiple indexes and you do not want to use it, right? In every index or every sources. For example, you can have in site X where you want this author to be for but in Y site, right, you do not have that author capability, right? So you would only mark those fields required, which is actually needed for all sites. For example, you can have the title or description, right? Publish date, right? And the second option thing is, the properties definition. This is when you click on this, it returns this particular object when the front end gets the data, right? Uh, Filter, right? Rules and filter. This is particularly helpful in when we create widget. I will show you. Site context is particularly helpful in the widget creation. If available for page URL generation says that if it is a part of your URL generation, if you have any slug on this, or when they say available on quick click on CEC, when you go to the content item, it will be available for searches. All these ranking recipes, top K, right? These are more from the AI perspective, right? Where you would define the ranking recipes for any particular use case, or top K. For example, you have three items which is coming repeatedly where you can utilize them, include in request concept, context, right? So you can pass the data to the Sitecore Search to filtering, use as dynamic attribute. This is more or less you will utilize these things, right? Whenever you have more frequent changing data, for example, your pricing is changing, right? Then you are going to use this. This build enumeration is blocked, right? Because I have used the string. If you have the array, it's out of the box, right? And now when you create a field, right, you define which features you want to use it for, right? So if you want to use it for the facet, right, if you have defined this particular piece as a facet, right, or attribute as a facet, then only you will be able to utilize this as a facet, right? So if I click on the facet, you will see that it automatically checks the filter attribute. So this is also saying that I will be utilizing all the facets in filtering as well, right? Because that's how facets work. Any personalization, if you want to create a sorting option out of it, textual relevance for the searching or any searching block. So I'm just going to utilize it for the facet, right? And I'm just going to add this attribute and you need to publish it. It says that you want to reindex it because every time you do these changes, right, you need to reindex the sources. So the Sitecore builds its backend accordingly, right? It do the tokenization accordingly. But I'm going to just leave out of it, right? Uh, which I will show you on later, right? So this is how you define any base. Create a source, create sitemap triggers, which will be the source of truth, and any document extractor, right, which will be your pulling out the data from actual content, right? And how you want to update this index or source. You define the crawler schedule. Right? I'm going to take a pause here, and if anyone have any questions, they can ask.
Hi Sunil, this is Krishna.
Yes.
During attribute addition, I saw one checkbox option says locale. May I know what is that if you have an idea on that?
Yes. If let me show you. Yeah. So if this is multilingual, if you have a website, right? For example, this data will be changing particularly for French, or you have a Spanish added in this, right? You define this as a local one, right? So
Okay.
Sitecore knows it will have a different values for each attributes.
So do I use it for, let's say, I have a
Mhm.
description which will change based on the region I am. So I just want to know about the approach. So description, let's have a better description field, and I will mark this as a
Mhm.
local because I know it will change based
Mhm.
on the region.
So
And
it
let's
will.
say,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
So this will be part of your multilingual setup, right? When you define the indexes, right, you will define the languages it supports, right? And
Okay.
since the attribute is, attribute can have right two properties, right? It can be a global thing, right, where you say that it's not changing. If I have language, but again, you can have that local part as well, right? So when we define the multilingual part, right, you would see, which is again the next session, but I'll show you in a bit, where you will say, okay, I support these three languages, and when the data is returned, right, Sitecore knows for this particular attribute you have defined the locale as well, and it's going to return the particular language piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to marking, right? When we go create a field, right, marking it version, unversioned, right? It's similar to like that. Not exactly, but similar.
Okay, that's good. Thanks.
So just coming back to the source, if anyone have any other question, they can ask, right? I'm taking this. Yes, no. So for your question, right, you can define the languages available locales, right? For your piece, right, you can have multiple locales here. You can define it, and then you would need to write one more thing, which is again your request extractor. You will where you will defining the language specific data, right? But that is the session which we are planning next time, right, where we will do all this configuration as well. But for the time being, this is how you would index it, right? So now I have added one more attribute on it. I'm just going to add that particular attribute in my index as well, right? So just defining it, right? So I named it as an author, right? And just going to copy it, this piece. And so instead of this, I'm going to say that this is an author type, right? And if it's instead of null, I'll be passing the empty string, right? So now I have defined the particular attribute and I have defined the author, right? So when I just save it and I can validate it, right? For example, I'm going to take this page and just validate once, and you will see the author, right? The Morgan Blake is the author for it. Now it starts coming right into this picture because I have defined this attribute one or more two. Sometimes this happens, right? But now I
So
have
I
saved it. Now
author two times there.
there was two times there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I saw.
Oh yeah, I'm defined on the bottom as well, right? I was doing something. Right. Yeah, thanks for the. Yeah. So whenever I change any attribute, I need to republish it because again, the Sitecore search does not know, right, that the values that you have, right? So whenever you trigger this and you publish it, it will start a new job. On this job, I would like to add a few things. I'm just going to delete this. So it's there. So when you do this job, right, if there are a few things that you want to know on this huge job, right? The Sitecore has its own machines, which is calling it from the backend to your server. So if your particular website has an WAF protected site, right, it might trigger few things, right? That this might be a suspicious activity where you can ask Sitecore about it, right? What are the IPs? But again, this list is very long, but if you have any WAF rules, right, you would need to have some kind of bypass rules for the Sitecore search so it can crawl your index. Because if you have 10,000 pages, right, at certain point, right, it will say that, okay, this might look a bot attack, but it's actually indexing your thing, right? So you need to be careful on that part as well, where you will have some tussle with your CISO or security team, right? So while this is working on the back end, I'm just going to go to the widget part, right? So widget is basically when we define what is the rule for our particular piece, right? So when I come to this search, right, this is in search result, right? And this is going to pull data from some widget, right? So this widget is where you can define the set of rules. You're going to define um, the what is the um, personalization you have, what is the boosting you can do, right? So this is where you can control everything from the site code, but this widget is what you are going to utilize on the front end to call the query and get the result accordingly. So everything is controllable from the site code, just putting the data from pulling the data from front end. So when we click create on widget, right, we are going you're going to see the preview, search result, recommendation, banner, or HTML block. Right. For this particular demo, we are going to show the search result because everything is too deep, right? So just I've created this one search result currently, right? Let me just show you, right, how it looks. You have to define the widget name. You have to define the widget ID. This widget ID will be used from the front end whenever you are doing the querying, which I'll show you in the query builder as well, right? And this particular option is right where it is little interesting page dialog and common across page. If you want to utilize in particular page, then you would create in this particular page for page. And if you want it to be utilized common across all pages, right? You would utilize it common across all pages. Page is utilized particularly useful when you are using like a global search versus an inside search versus a case study search, right? Then you should use the page. And if you have something like um, suggester, auto suggester, right, then you can mostly use the common across all the pages, right? So I have defined this demo widget for you, and this is how it looks when this comes out of the box, right? And you can have the widget setting. This is the same widget setting that you created, right? And where you have the widget ID, which will be used in page, right? And you can create the pages as well, right? And you can map this in a particular widget, right? So this particular page will have this widget. I'm just going to show you the widget settings. So when you click on default, you can define a lot of rules on it, right? I'll just try to edit it. So one thing that I will add it, but not give much more about it. But when you click on the site context, right, we saw when we were defining finding the rules, right, that there was will be available for site context. So this is where it is useful, right? Whenever we are creating the attributes. So now this is where you define the rules, right? This is the slot. It shows you that how the basic result is coming from, right? You can, whenever you click on this particular page, right, widget icon, right, you can define that if this will be the pinned one, this will be the boost one, right? You can bury or blacklist the content. This is the basic result section that it is showing that this will how it will look, right? If you make it UI that wise, right? So now coming to the boost rules is again similar to the when we used to do the solar right? We used to pick a field and boost it. So so the relevance is higher, right? So whenever the user searches, that particular field has more priority, which is a business critical logic again, but that you can define. So on this particular piece, right, I have defined, right, on the page content, right, page tags, if it's the cloud, um, it should be boosted, right? So whenever you click on this, right, it automatically pulls the values from the Sitecore dictionary it has, right, and it gives you suggestion, right? This is the what these values are. You can have like the business transformation add-on, right, and all these things. And bury rules is where you want to bury or deprioritize rule, right? The items. For example, you are trying to create a search, but you want to say that okay, I do not want to see the case studies on the top, but insights should come. So you can bury those things, right? If you have any particular logic, right? You can define, right? Okay, the page type is like it's just refreshing, whatever the page type may be, right? You can define the page type, right? It is now starting giving the session. right? If the office page, right, just bury the rule, right? So it comes on the bottom. A blacklist rules is where you can, blacklist the certain items. You can drag and drop these items as well, right? Where you can say, okay, I do not want to show these particular results, even though they are in the criteria, but I do not want to show them. This can be, right, some old content or some content that is not yet supposed to be visible, right? So this is where you can define these rules. Now coming to this feature, which is the additional settings, right? As I was telling you, right, you can have the facets, textual relevance, all this controlled from the particular widget piece, right? Uh, Now I can define, right. So you will see that this template, this page has template, industry type, and page tags, and this is what I have defined, right? It should have the template, industry type, and the page tag. Now we created one more, right, which was author. I'm just going to enable it, and I'm just going to say that they should come on the top, right? And now coming to the textual relevance, where you want to, whenever user searches, right, which field you want to search it to search, right? What priority it should have, right? First, it will search on the description, right? Search rankings, again, this is more like when you start creating the analytics part, right? You would have these details much more, but you can all define the personalization, which we'll cover in the next part session, right? Sorting is, again, this is all this you can define, right? Here, right? You have this option of whichever sorting you want to create, right? So when you apply this rule, right, and publish it, and you will see that the changes start coming on the front end. Just one thing that I particularly missed, I just wanted to add, right? You can define the sorting attribute. Whenever you define, right, you have to define the particular sorting attributes or type, right? So again, coming with the process is you come to this last administrator tool, domain settings, feature configuration, and when you click on this edit, where you can define all these set sorting attributes, right? So this is I've defined this. This will be an attributes based sorting. You can decide the algorithm based sorting as well. And yes, so I'm not sure that someone was saying something. Do you have any questions? Okay. So yeah, here you can define all the sorting as well, right? So this is how you can define the sorting, and you will see all the things in widget. And this widget is controlling all the data where you have boosting rules, bury rules. And let me just try to refresh it. Uh, oh, I think I missed the sorting part, but yeah, you see the author has started coming up. So if I start selecting the authors, it will automatically start the faceting value, and the publishing date, it will just change accordingly, right? So this is how you initially start from the indexing source, right? And create, build your way out, right? Defining all the fields, defining all the values in the uh, source section, right? Defining in your attributes, then coming to the attributes, defining attributes, what type of configuration that you want for the particular attribute, right? Either it will be used in for faceting, sorting, or searchable context, then defining the widgets. And when you show this widget or open it to the front end, right? You will be utilizing it. I'll just show you a quick query, right, for the timing. And let's say I'm just querying it, right? You will see that this widget has the payload where you have defined all the queries, and these queries are going through as a part of um, out of the, this is all nothing I have done it that manually doing it. This is the SDK part, right? It has all the options where you see that this is the template types, or this is the queries that was generated, and you will see the response on the widgets, the what the widget RFK ID responded with the result, facet name, sorting options, and all the results refreshes automatically. One thing that before I wrap up, right? If I'll show you the last thing, right? You will see that a lot of events that I'm pushing it, right? You can push the events. So why these events are particularly useful? So when you come to a dashboard, right, you see these page views, widget, unique request, widget clicks, right? So this is how you get these events, right? You pass it from the front end, and then the Sitecore Search will keep it on, right? But when you go to Cloud SDK, you always have that unified one approach as well. But this is you can also define using the JSS SDK, and you can have these events, data, analytics data for your more personalized content around it. Like I was telling you, I will cover it in detail in the next session, but just to give you a brief, right? You would have like 7-day click average position. These things you can always define, right? So in order to get there, you need to have a base of setting all the data, putting all the correct events in the place, right? Whenever the widget is being clicked or the page is being viewed, right? So this is how you connect it, and this is how a decomposable architecture works, right? This particular website is on Sitecore, not in Sitecore. This is an empty website, right? This is an purely Next.js website which has some attributes. I have connected it to the Sitecore Search, and it is Sitecore Search is now deriving all the data, all the personalization, all the faceting attributes for this website search, right? So that's truly how decomposable search works, right? From starting point to showing the result, right? If you have any questions, you can ask, right, before we wrap up the demo.
Yeah, any questions you can ask now?
So if we are going to search any keyword and we
Mhm.
don't found any result, okay, so is there any provision in the analytics so we can see which keyword is user is searching and we are not able to search that specific
Yes.
keyword?
Yeah, you can have that configured, right? So whenever you click on the event, right, you would see that this CVR conversion rate, right? I'm not sure, right, but it does show the uh, no result, the keywords.
So
I'm not sure, right, but it does so, right? It has the capabilities. I do not have any particular event here, right, which resulted in no search. I'm really sorry. I'll come back to you on the exact place where you can look into it, right? You can ping me on LinkedIn, but it does have that flexibility, right? It shows that which keyword was missing, so you can have a better personalization or better synonyms created out of it. Yep. Sorry, someone was saying something.
and one more question from my side.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are having the widget, right? So you have
Mm-hmm.
created currently the search result widget.
Mm-hmm.
So, so for example, if in the search text box we want like when I'm going to search any keyword, and I should see the list of the related items. You can say related keyword. So how we can configure that?
Yep.
Like, can you go to the
For
search
example,
text box?
this one,
Yeah, yeah, that this
like
one,
this one.
right, right, this
Yeah.
one,
So this
right.
is what we call creating an auto suggester, right? Let me just show you, right? So I have created a preview search, right? You would create a preview search, and you would basically there are two different widgets that you are trying to create, right? This is an auto suggester. Let me show you. Sure, right. Where did I configure it? This is just to give me a second. It's still not loading for me. You define auto suggestion basically. Let me just show you quickly, right? So whenever I click on this, right, or start typing something, right? Show you. I say digital. So right there, when you see, right, this particular piece has two widgets, right? This is in demo preview, which is calling, and it has an suggestion of autocomplete, right? You can, I'll just show you on the Sitecore Search as well, right? I've defined this demo preview as an auto suggester, right? Where you will have your auto suggestion rules, and it will show you all the results that you are you're saying that okay, I was want to see the default one. So yeah, this is how this is it creates it. I'm just if it loads right. Uh, where was it? So yeah, this is an auto suggestion block, right? You can define it, but there's more to it. Yes, sure. Yeah. So yeah, here, sorry. This is how you define the auto suggestion. You can define the auto suggester for the your particular case, right? This is the title autocomplete, right? What is the number of results you want to integrate it? What what is the algorithm you want to use, right? What particular field that you want to generate a suggestion from, and then you can assign it to the demo preview. So you will come here and define a base auto suggester. For example, this one is mine. My one is using just refresh it or try to type something digital. Um, uh, um, sorry, this is where it should come. Yeah, this is what my one is using the autocomplete one, right? So I have you created this one, right, where I have a blacklist tool, right? I want to define the Tammy as a blacklist. This is context aware algorithm that I'm using. There are multiple analyzer, which is again you can read about them more. And this is how you have I have created a suggestion, right, from the name field and searchable text, right, which I have created as a field, and you can define the combinations, right? So it will have a priority. So name title with search or simply name title. And when you define the combination, you can even define the weights. So for the title, I have given 44, and for the text, I have given the 12, right? So this is how you generate an suggestion block, and then you utilize it. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
5 more minutes for questions. If you have any questions, you can go ahead, or if you want to type it in the chat as well, you can add it there as well, so that Ritesh can also answer the queries. Yeah.
Hey, Yami, I have one question. Hey.
Yep.
Sunil, in general, so like when we have a very large number of products, right, or very large amount of data, like in the solar also we are struggling sometimes, right? We are
Mm-hmm.
creating multiple slave systems, right? So is
Right.
there something limitation here in the search as well? Because like if you have as well, I have a million millions of product or millions of pages, like data, very huge data. So how this search works? I mean, do you have any such scenarios? I mean, you face issues like
See,
that?
I have maxed out like 10,000 and so items, right? How generally we do it is, right, we define on the how you say, right, the sources level, right, that how much data we want, um, how we integrate it, right? For example, in Solar, we would be creating multiple sources, right? If you have the scenario where you want to show everything in one um, index, right, which is I think again will not work in most of the cases. You would take any data, but there is no limitation on it. But from the technical perspective or architectural perspective, I would still not keep it on one sources, right? I have not seen any data which is failed, right? Due to the large amount. But again,
Mhm.
this blocks again. This will create an issue for your website, right? Whenever it's pulling, or if your API is crawler is going right, because it's going to put a huge amount of load in your APIs, right? When it's trying to index, right? So you can define the whatever the settings you want to see, right? How much delay that you want to add, or how much parallel resources, right, workers that you want to create, right? For example, 10 is the maximum parallel workers that you can have, right? You can define all these settings. You can pass a threshold of higher timeout, right? So your API returns or the data returns has more tolerance to it, but putting a million records into single index, right, will still create an issue in any document search, right? But there is no absolute limitation. It's just that it blocks your um, server as well also chokes sometimes the site core as well, right? If the does not return the actual amount. So one more thing, right, on this particular thing, right? If Sitecore feels like 25% or more documents does not return correctly, or it drops the indexing, um, thing, right? So let me just show you, right? So this fails, right? So if you have do not have the appropriate amount of documents, which is like you have 10,000 amount and like 5,000 field, right? So it does not update the document. Site was says, okay, this does not look correct, right? I'm not going to replace your data. So that is something you should keep on mind.
Got it. Thank you, Sunil. I think you described in, I mean, very good way. Yeah. Thank you, Sunil.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, any other queries?
Hi Sunil, this is Prakash here. So I have a query. So we have any re-index option for
Yeah,
scheduler wise? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You can always come and define, right, the scheduler right here, and you can say that, okay, I want to be repeat on a specific date it starts, right? And on how much days or how much week, right? You want to expand it, right? You just need to also enable if you want to enable the incremental bits, you can also do that, right? Where you can push the data manually, well, not manually, via some API as well, but you can always have that scheduler which runs in the background,
Is there any
where you can.
history? Yeah, is there any history option whether this scheduler is hit properly or failed or something? So those kind of list
You
we can
can
see.
see right here on the
Okay.
when you click on this, right, variety site, right, you will see that the last run processing summary.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay. So day
it's
wise we can see,
shows
right?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see, right, whenever not day wise. Let's say that your controller, your you have
Okay.
like 12 hours, right? You will see that last, you can have last 50 or so result, right? You can also export this particular piece by clicking on here.
Okay, I have one more query. Like we have a trigger option, right? So
Mhm.
normally in graphical playground we have write a
Yeah.
script and so how
Yeah.
it's working, right? Same script we have put it in trigger, right?
Yes.
But in while putting the trigger, we have to add some slash or some double quotes or something we need to add, right?
Yeah, I understand the point. Right. So this is one of the JSS connector I created. Due to time crunch, I'm not able to show it, right. So
Okay,
what is happening is, right, there is an API that I've created,
okay,
which is basically pulling the data from, it's not from sitemap, right. It's a different website that we are pulling the data from, right. And then you would also you can have that extractor right here. This is a request extractor, right. For each request, right, you can extract some item, right. For example, I have this particular API which for each URL it creates a separate path of it, right? For you can do anything on this particular item URL. You can remove the slash, extra backslash. You can remove any language specific thing that you might have added, right? And then
yes,
it
sir.
will return the request, and then it will pass on to your document extractor, where you will have all the information.
Got it, got it. Thanks. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, thank you, Ritesh and Sunil. That was really a wonderful presentation and insightful as well. Thank you for the queries and thank you for taking time to answer them as well. So that's it for today. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next session. Bye bye.